Everybody, welcome again to Yeshiva classroom. Every week this time, and we'd like to show you a little bit about Judaism, and we can start off with the boundaries, the present boundaries that are delineated in the Torah, in the Old Testament, known to the Gentile world, the Jewish Bible, the 5 books of Moses, which were handed down to him by God. So that is paramount. That our Bible is based on the witnesses who stood in front of Mount Sinai and all the given. Explain how the Torah was actually given, and a little bit of rounding off some of the areas that may not be known. So we start off with the Torah, and that was given to us divinely, you know. It's not like some hearsay, someone telling us of a great discovery. We had witnesses who stood in front of Mount Sinai and saw all this transpire. Let me explain how the Torah, the Bible, the Jewish Bible, the only Bible we have, the Old Testament. There's no New Testament in Judaism, and that was given by God to Moses, dictated. If you look up, you should get a pen and a pad and mark down these books that I'm telling you to refer to, and basically they're going to be all in the Jewish Bible. And I want you to refer to Deuteronomy. Got the pen, right? Deuteronomy chapter 33, 24, 33, 24. And over there it says, God rides the heavens to help you. But if you look on chapter 31, and chapter 31 in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 17, and you'll see over there that God says that He will hide His presence from the Jewish people, and they will be for devouring. At 31, 17, God will hide His presence, and they will be for devouring. And if you read on a little bit further in chapter 31, you have 31:24 right there. It talks about how God dictated the Bible to Moses. In Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 24, dictated the Bible to Moses, and that Bible contains the basic ingredients of how the Jews came to be the chosen people. Jewish people are the chosen people. How so? Because it says so in the Bible. It says over there in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6, you shall be holy because I have chosen, right? I have chosen you as a treasured people from all the peoples on the face of the earth. Chapter 14, verse 2, the same sentence. You shall be holy because I have chosen you as a treasured people from all the peoples of the world. So you have 2 places in the book of Deuteronomy, right? We have 5 books of the Torah. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which is the 5th book of the Bible. And basically, Deuteronomy contains a repetition of what went before, and also new laws that Moses directed the people to follow from God. And that was included in the Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy. So what was included in the book of Deuteronomy? We have the first part of the Bible in Genesis, where the first 11 chapters deal with God wanting to find a people or individual who would be a surrogate, so to speak, to bring God's way of life that he wants the world to live by. And you look at chapter 11, the first 11 chapters, and chapter 5, it delineates all the progeny of all the righteous people. But only Abraham was picked in chapter 12 in the book of Genesis, because God knew that he would teach his children and his household the ways of God. And unlike the other righteous people, they did not, or unable to pass on these teachings that they had come up with by meditation, observation, and having received traditions from their forefathers, namely God and Adam and Eve, because they had questions and they knew where they came from. And they were told in Genesis to work and guard. It says work and guard, referring to work on the positive commandments and guard against transgressing the negative commandments. That's in Adam. But even though Adam got the word from God, he still transgressed, and we see, it points out his children how he ate from the tree, and the children transgressed, and third generation Seth was already worshiping the servants of God, the stars and the moons. So it wasn't until Abraham, the first Jew, came along the scene, and God knew that he would transmit all his teachings to his posterity. And we see today, we as observant Orthodox Jews maintain that kesher, that bind of passing down the Torah from our forefathers, passing down the instructions from our forefathers. And that is why it is so significant. And that first part of Genesis and Abraham and creation, that was included in the Bible. That was included in the Bible that God dictated to Moses in chapter 31, verse 24. Chapter 31, verse 24 in Deuteronomy. Write it down. Chapter and verse, look it up. You got the whole, the whole idea of teaching is not for a man or a rabbi to give over like I'm trying to do now, but it's only the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the iceberg is up to you to work and review and go further. That's the name of the game. You have to work. We're a company. We're a people of priests, a congregation of Kohanim, and Leviticus, a Kohanim, congregation of Kohanim. God, in chapter 19, when he brought the Jewish people out of Egypt, and he said to them, "You see how I destroyed the Egyptian country. Again, in chapter 19, in Exodus, write it down. Remember, Exodus chapter 19, you see how I destroyed the country and people of Egypt, and how I carried you on wings of eagles, right? That's taken from the Torah, right? They have a movie on that, right? Wings of eagles, right? No one can fly higher than the eagle. The eagle carries its young on its pinions, on its wings, because no one can, bird can, a hawk or any kind can get higher than him. Unlike the other birds, they carry them on with their feet. The eagle carries them on the wings, right? So that's what it says in Leviticus. I'll make you a nation of Kohanim, a nation of priests. Kohanim means priest, where everyone will be knowledgeable and learning and understanding and working at the Torah, working at its means, the translation of what it means. And that's what it means, a company, an assemblage of priests. And Jewish people at that time, you know, they're rushing to get to the Mount Sinai and receive the Torah and hear God speak to them. And over there it says that they rush to the mountain, and before going there, he said, "Nasa, we will do," without even listening. They said, "Nasa, we will do," and therefore God came down. All in chapter 19, He came down and said in a thick cloud and spoke to Moses that the people should hear, right? That the people should hear and believe forever that there is a God, because they heard it with their own eyes, that they heard God speaking to Moses from the thickness of a cloud. And He took, and the people came, and they heard the 10 Commandments, right? They heard the 10 Commandments. They didn't receive anything, but they heard the voice. And then it continues on chapter 20. Excuse me, right? We finished 19. We go on to 20 and it says, Ve'ele mishpatim. These are the laws between man and man, the torts and the civil laws, responsibilities, liabilities, all spelled out in relatively detailed fashion. Up until from 20 to chapter 24, they're all torts and laws pertaining to relationship between man and man. In chapter 24, all these compilations from 10 Commandments and all these other written laws were compiled, and God said for Moses to write them, to speak to them. Speak to these words to the people. And the people said, Nasa, again, we shall do. Just like in chapter 19. They said, Nasa, we shall do. That was in chapter 24. And Moses said, and God said to Moses, write them down in a book. And the book was called Sefer HaBaris. It's in the Torah. Look, chapter 24. What is Sefer HaBaris? The book of the covenant. And the people again said, Nasa, I said in chapter 19, he said, Nasa, we will do, without even examining what it means. And chapter 24, after it was written down in the book, they said, Nasa v'nishma, we will listen, we will do, and we will listen. We will do, and we will listen. First Nasa, then in chapter 24 Nasa, and chapter 24 Nasa v'nishma, right? And then they all rejoice with the vision of God in chapter 24. But this Sefer HaBris, the book of the covenant, was included in the Torah when it was dictated. Why am I bringing this down? because it was included in the dictation that God dictated to Moses. Chapter 20, in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 24. And God dictated the Torah to Moses, and that was later. That book, that Torah, consisted of the first part, which dealt with Abraham and the fathers, Isaac and Jacob, and how they developed teachings, and those teachings went in with the Jewish people when they went into slavery for 400 years in exile, and the Torah doesn't mention all the evils that they did assimilating, because they weren't allowed to go out. They weren't allowed to leave Egypt. They had to build the pyramids, and therefore there is no outward sign that they transgressed. They weren't allowed to leave. And the same thing in Europe, the Holocaust. They were, the reasons was not explicitly stated until many years later, like Ezekiel explained about the enslavement of the Jewish people in Egypt at that time, because they were not allowed to go. And the same thing in World War II. Europe was a big concentration camp. It was a huge concentration camp, a place where Jews were systematically murdered by those fiendish Germans. And now, they feel so terrible what they did. They don't know how to make up for all the murders that they did. I have another book that shows in Austria, 1939-40, where all the citizenry came and attacked the Jewish people and broke their windows and smashed their places of businesses and kicked them, beat them right in front of the street. And here today, 2017, is Judengas in Vienna, right? I have a friend that came from Vienna that took one of the last boats out of Vienna. So this is Judenstraße. Yeah, we love the Jews, and they come and visit the Jews all the time. They come to Israel. We're so sorry what we did for you. What should be done would be even more commendable. Would be that they should set up monuments to the murderers of innocent people in the concentration murderers camps, right? That's what they should do. They should set up these murderous perpetrators, murderers of the Germans kept great records. They knew who the SS and the soldiers were, which outfit, who served in the concentration camp, where they were manufacturing the gas, the poisonous gas, and how they transported it in vans, to Red Cross vans, to the concentration camps, and then there were guards there that beat the prisoners into the chambers, gas chambers, and then there was some people were assigned to throw the gas canisters into the crematorium there, or into the gas chambers, right? And some were our friendly doctor who injected poisonous gasoline substances to Jewish youth. They have to be known. They're known. They're known to everybody in Germany. They kept great records. The Germans were record keepers. Everything was orderly. Everything was known. And what they should do is put, in each town in Germany, make a nice monument and say this family, this person in Germany during World War II, his job was to throw the gas canisters into the hundreds of Jews that were crammed into the gas chambers. That was his job. And mark his name and his job. And so they won't forget, right? And so you have a monument. And that's what you have for every SS and every German who committed these atrocities. And have a great plaque to remember that these were your forefathers that did such dastardly acts. Yes, we shouldn't forget. But the way we should not forget is that not the never again bit, because we were punished for these transgressions. And how do we stave off these punishments? That is by learning the Torah. Learning and practicing the Torah, because we are surrogate people to God. That is what we choose, and that is our station in life, to remember that our job is to act as a lantern in this darkness that surrounds the world. And we learn it out from chapter 4 in Deuteronomy. Write it down, D. Write it down. You got to do homework and not listen to me, because it's going to go in one ear and out the other ear. You got to look in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 5, right? 4 or 5. That what it said over there? You should perform the commandments, because it is your understanding and knowledge in the eyes of the Gentile when they see you and see you perform. Excuse me. See you perform and hear how you observe the commandments, and so they will say, "What a wise and understanding people they are, that has a God so close to them, who answers them and directs them in a righteous manner, in a righteous fashion." That's in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 5, right? It says that you should obey the commandments and practice them, because it is your wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the Gentiles when they hear you perform and follow the dictates of your Bible, and will say what a wise and understanding people they are, that have a God so close to them, and over there in chapter 30 in Deuteronomy, write it down, chapter 30, verse 14. It's not in to perform these mitzvahs, these commandments, these directives. It's not in the excuse me. It's not in the heavens that you tell your friend, go up to the heavens and teach and get these books so I can study them, perform them. No, it's not across the sea that you have this. This is all in the Torah, chapter 30. Chapter 30, about 14, 12, chapter 30, verse 12, 14. And it's not in the heavens, it's not across the sea, but it's in your mouth, right? To speak of them and to say over these words of the Torah. And it's in your heart, which means mind, to learn them. And that is our mission in life. That's the life of a Jew. And unfortunately, we're heading, in some ways in the wrong direction. But as it says over there in 30, in Deuteronomy 33:24, right? 33:24, that God rides the heavens to help you. And you see, like, today we have President Trump, God bless him. He's a messenger of God, and he is following the righteousness of nations, and one which is topmost and utmost and keeping these laws is the Jewish people and Israel, and Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, like it says in the Bible. And recently, I need an assistant over here to help me with some of these things. But recently they uncovered a logo which was from the governor of Jerusalem. It was a clay logo from the governor of Jerusalem, who had a shipment of some kind of merchandise was sent to. Was sent from here to there. So that was in the time of the first temple, where the governor of Jerusalem in the times of the first temple, that was his seal. So I don't have a picture of it. I mean, I have a picture of it, but I don't have it with. It's not on my finger. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Tis here. Here it is. This is what they